through the vibrational frequencies, look at that trauma and pinpoint exactly what were the emotions that your mom experienced when she was pregnant with you. In some cases, it's conscious. In other cases, like we had somebody say, oh, my mom told me she had the most amazing pregnancy. So as we start asking questions, then they'll say, oh, yeah, she did experience this. Yes, she did experience that. But it's fascinating how our mind tells us one thing, but based on what information gets passed on, we're able to decipher that and give those tools to people so then they'll have more clarity, more peace in order to heal the generational trauma, because it is key.
You are listening to the Aligned and Alive podcast with Chrissy May, where we discuss the various aspects of spirituality and wellness. A place where you can find guidance and a space to explore your life's meaning and purpose, allowing you to become connected, aligned, and feeling fully alive. Today, joining me are a high-vibing, dynamic duo that are raising the collective consciousness one day at a time. For over 20 years, Alejandro Ferradas has transformed lives by facilitating profound transformational journeys. He harnesses the power of quantum physics and utilizes advanced scalar wave technology to read the vibrational frequencies and the human biofield. Alejandro and his partner Elena Bensonoff use this remarkable system to piece together your life story to give you crystal clear understanding of the areas of your life that need to be addressed, which facilitates a deeper knowing of your divine essence. I had the pleasure to sit and share in conversation last month with Elena Bensonoff. She is a holistic medicine practitioner and founder of Holistic Inc. Elena helps people all over the world find balance and vitality with the services and products that she has developed through her uniquely diverse background. From a clinical pharmacist to artisan perfumer, American Board of Anti-Aging Health Practitioner diplomat, to becoming a pioneer in the fields of functional, regenerative, and quantum medicine. Today, we explore their profound works and how you, the listener or viewer, can learn more in order to shift your life, heal past wounds and trauma, and begin to live a life of peace, joy, and abundance. I am so excited to welcome to the show today, Alejandro Ferradas and Elena Bensonoff.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here.
I like to have everybody see the full picture, where you are from and your background and your expertise and just a little peek into you. And more importantly, how you two connected and your beautiful divine union that you created, the systems that you designed with the vibrational revelations.
And it's totally has been a journey. First of all, for both of us coming from totally different backgrounds, culturally as well. You know, I'm from the former Soviet Union, from Ukraine. Alejandro is from Peru. We came, actually, it's interesting because we came to the United States around the same time when we started comparing notes, but he lived in California and I lived in Connecticut. I was following my own path, my own journey. He was doing his own work. And then one day, a friend of mine actually connected us on social media and said, you know, there's a guy, he reminds me of you. And I'm like, really? And I was very skeptical. And I can share this. I mean, this is things I think in our community, we tell the story because people want to know, what's the story? How did you guys meet? And I remember looking at his profile. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm not interested in long distance relationships. He's in California. And then you said the same thing.
Yes, I said the same thing.
She's in Florida, forget it. And she has 4 kids.
Yes, no way I'm going to think of planning such a big move for making, a very difficult transition, I thought that okay, let's leave the door open, right, and remain curious and willing.
Yeah.
So
we didn't speak at all. We just saw each other's profiles and said, "Oh no, not for me." And then, sometimes these happy birthday things pop up, and I was like, "Who's this guy?" And I remembered when my friend said, "You guys remind me of each other." So of course I asked him for his birthday, and I realized quickly we were both Pisces. So I'm like, oh, maybe that's what it was that reminded her, right, that we are similar.
Mm.
So I said, oh, let me pull up your astrology chart. Again, I'm not an astrologer, but I love patterns. And he says to me, his response was, let me do.
Okay, let me do your numerology report.
Yeah.
It's my language.
It's so romantic.
Right? It's like,
Love it.
I like it. So anyway, he pulled the numerology chart. I pulled astrology, and it was so interesting to actually see how similar we were from an astrological perspective. And again, then years later, we had one of who became our friends, Lada. Lada has a big YouTube channel. She's a very famous astrologer. She actually, in our Vibrational Revelations, did a whole episode on our astrology.
Wow.
Okay,
And
Babylonian
astrology, and why we came together and what our mission is. And it was just so clear. We already knew that. But it's also written in the stars. So I responded to him. And then the interesting thing happened. I went to visit him for his birthday. We spent 4 days together in California. He came to Florida for 8 days. And then the following month, he moved. So we had, you can say, speed getting to know each other.
For years, I was sharing, as probably you have noticed, Chrissy, messages. And for a while, it was about being open and receptive when it comes to establishing relationships, right? And genuine, authentic ones. And we have to be open, even though most of us have experienced, as we navigate through life, deceptions and being betrayed to a certain extent. And that we tend to close up, right? And then we are not able to see what's actually around us. So I thought, I've been preaching for so long about being open and just following what you feel and pay attention to the way you feel and allow that to guide you, right? As long as it resonates and it feels good, obviously.
Right.
And it feels like you're in alignment with the person, the situation. And I said, okay, well, I have to put down my guards and I have to dismantle all these limiting beliefs and all
because
these
he was
labels.
Really
and not
concerned
to
when we got together.
And not to expand on my scientific way on a critical mind to take over. So I said, okay, let's just follow the flow and let's be open to see what unfolds from this. So at the beginning, I thought, yeah, I feel this person is genuine and is authentic, and you get what you see, or you see, what is it? You see what you get.
Yeah.
And that was very clear to me. But I thought, okay, there's no way I'm gonna, at this point in my life, to think of moving someone and change their life and their children's life and all of that. I said, but I can definitely, I have this certainty that I have found a very good friend and a friend for life, and that's how really the story began.
But I'll tell you, the first evening we were together, he did freak out, and I was like, "What is happening?" And he was like, "Oh, I have to live what I'm preaching." And
if you were to know the details of that evening, it was really out of a movie, sci-fi movie, I should say, and because I was experiencing everything that I experienced randomly, unexpectedly, when it comes to the non-physical world, seeing and sensing things were happening all at once, right? And then on top of that, all this thought process as of, I have to do this, I have to do that, then after this, what is going to happen? I have to make all these decisions, and I have, rearrange everything if I'm really going to move forward at the speed, to match the speed at which things were unfolding. You know, I've heard this often, that there's no time and space. This is the moment. Yeah. So had at one point I can't take this. I was very sensitive and feeling all these things, and from the non-physical, and then my thought process, it got to a point where it was overwhelming. I have to admit it, you know. And that's when I thought, okay, wait a minute. Become the observer, right, of the situation, and of the observant, and the one being observed. In a way, I don't get entangled with the thoughts, with the ego, and allow the ego to take control of what was happening, right? So, and that brought me more clarity, and I was able to calm down and remain engaged in the journey, what was actually taking place at the moment, to enjoy it fully without worrying about or comparing it to what I have to past experiences,
right?
And then allowing fear to kick in to take me to the future, being afraid that might be repeated with the situation, you know. So that was extremely important, and it was a crash course.
Thank you for sharing. What a beautiful story. And I believe that's what most people are going through, right? And think of, I mean, you had an inner knowing, clearly. You both did. And you trusted the process. And then, of course, I think like a lot of relationships early on, you start questioning, you start getting into ego, creating false narratives that haven't even happened yet. It's a dance that I think a lot of us do, but you gratefully trusted it and have created this beautiful family for life. And wow, what a powerful story. And it's funny, I think that you brought that up. Here you are, an expert in vibration and manifesting, if you will, right? Creating your own reality. And then when it's there front and center, you're like, what do I do with this? I mean, it's right there in front of you, everything you've ever wanted, but we still question. Life doesn't happen to us. We're the co-creators of our life, and it's how we choose to step up in life and what vibration we choose to emit that frequency at.
You know, what comes to me is those of us that truly believe in divine guidance and love, it can happen at any moment when you allow for your heart to lead you. Versus your mind, which is the ego, because ego and mind can trap you in at any moment. But when you know that feeling of what you were seeking your whole life is right in front of you, and it could be very scary. And I'm glad that he took that step to move to Florida. And this has been 4.5 years now since his move. It really is an example, I will say, to anyone who is seeking and has a deep knowing, that whether it is your best friend that you're looking for, right? And I think finding your best friend is just as important as finding your life partner. Or maybe it's a project that you're just guided towards and you're being pulled. And it's really about trusting that to lead you, trusting your heart to lead you versus your mind. It's important to, of course, have our thoughts, right? And have certain parameters. But the most important thing, I think, for both of us is really our heart that guided us, and the love that is beyond what I guess most people can perceive. But for us, it's like it was a known thing. Like my whole life, I knew what a relationship was supposed to feel like, and for you too. And then when you find it, you're like, oh wow, this is what this is. Exactly. This is how I've always imagined it, you know.
And it shows when I just observe you guys, you know, online and all that. It's so authentic. It's so beautiful. It's nice to be able to be invited into your experience and to show that it is possible. There is light at the end of the tunnel for those that are still searching for their best friend and life partner. So then how did this transition to where you two are now connected in this beautiful union? And how did Vibrational Revelations come about? Which I'm now a part of, by the way. I just want to.
Oh, yay, good.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you.
I would say that at first it was our curiosity to weed things out and to really gain some clarity. when it comes to what the world shows and what you feel internally, right? And often we feel this misalignment. There's no coherence between what is being expressed or shared and with what you feel. That is the resonance. No, we always say that the key is to seek your ultimate truth. Not necessarily our truth, your truth, or anyone's truth in particular, but the ultimate truth, that which really inspires you, motivates you, that is a byproduct of being in alignment with your inner being, being in alignment with the God force within you. And so what we thought is, how do we actually put into numbers what our intuitive insights are telling us when it comes to the message has been expressed and in the intention behind it?
Or like people will say, you said, people say, I'm high vibe. Well, how do you know if somebody is high vibe? They might be saying it, but we
feel it.
Right. But sometimes you don't feel it. Like, okay, a person says I'm high vibe, and it's like, okay, well, that's not necessarily aligning with the message that they're sharing. Right?
Exactly. And how do we know that they might be right and we might be wrong, or how do we define somewhat to get some sort of a clear point of reference that we can base it from? And of course, it's not about being right or wrong. I have to correct myself. It's not about being negative or positive, right? When it comes to good or bad, when it comes to the scale that we use to base the different levels of consciousness and different states of beingness. But at least it gives you a point of reference as of how much resistance is the person experiencing, right? And then that gives you more awareness. That helps you to identify where your energetic blockages lie and the reason why you're not able to manifest what you desire, and the reason why you're not enjoying life as much as you're wanting to, and the reason why you're having so much chaos around or in your life, or you're attracting so much chaos, right? And so, but all stems from taking full responsibility first and foremost. Right. Recognizing that everyone has the ability to access a field of unlimited divine intelligence, flow of unlimited divine intelligence. Yes, everyone. Yes. No matter how low or high one vibrates, we all have that ability. And that is because we were all given free will. So it is harder to realize that you have free will, that you have access to the remote control in order to change those channels and find what resonates with you, because you're clear. This is what resonates with me right now, and that's it. And you don't see anything else differently. It doesn't matter how much people try to make you or force you to understand. Often happens, right? Because they see your potential. And they recognize that you have the ability to see a broader picture. You can't force someone to do that. They have to come to their own realization. And that's when they actually feel it and realize, oh, here it is, the remote control. I can change the channel. But before that, they could have had 10 remote controls and they were not able to.
But numbers, so to go back to Chrissy's question, why did we decide numbers, first of all, have quality to them, right? Just like color has a quality, numbers have a quality. And we wanted to use numbers, and we're not talking about numbers in hertz, okay? These are the numbers that are related to emotions, because if everything is energy, right? And everything has a vibration, and everything omits, let's say, emotions for human beings, right? For beings in general, which is information, and information has quality to it. So we wanted to have a way to describe, okay, what that is, okay? And based on assigning those numbers, we've actually had to work and rework our scale several times, and we've just updated our scale back in the spring of this year, because we realized also something very profound, that everything in the universe, which we already know, is fractal, right? So everything that you see is above is below. So, there's the golden ratio, 1.16. Everything builds on everything else. So again, nothing is linear in this universe. And that means our awareness builds on itself. Consciousness expands and learns from itself. And we are all part of that. So that also means that the scale can never be linear. And we took the nesting dolls, the great example of the nesting dolls. And for those people that want to download the PDF, we'll send you the link also. You'll be able to share that with people. And what we realized, we broke it down into 5 dolls. Okay, there could be millions of other dolls in there too, but why is it 5? So the very core, the very center of the doll is the divine essence, the golden divine spark that exists within every vibration, every living being. So that it doesn't mean that, if somebody, you could say, is playing a role in the shadow, that they are not part of this divine essence. They also carry this divine essence. And the other aspects, the bigger doll, if you were to envision the biggest nesting doll, it represents what we inherit as human beings, right? It's this victim mentality. It's what you would call the hijacking of the matrix, right? Why are we allowing for this to happen in our life? And it has to do with our limiting belief systems that we inherit from our mother, our father, our ancestral patterns, our school, our friends, right? Religious institutions. So by removing and shedding those layers, we get closer and closer to the divine essence that is part of who we all are. Right. And that is the first from victimization, then we go into activation frequencies, then we go into inspiration frequencies, and then it's illumination, where you're walking fully in your divine light.
Beautiful. Essentially, it almost sounds like even like a spiritual awakening in a way, to where you're just coming back to the purest form of who we all are.
Yes, definitely. And the name of the scale is actually vibrational frequencies of awakening.
Oh, okay.
Because it is a process, right? I will say that is to remember that which we already are, where are, and will always be, right? Because it is really God having a human experience,
right?
And we just have to pay attention to the voice within us that is readily waiting for us to reach out and allow it to guide us, right, to whatever it is that we want to experience. Right. So because it's never judging whatever decisions we make. Yes, there's no resistance coming from your God essence, right? And that way you're always guided for whatever it is you decided to experience. But as you navigate through life and you pay attention to that, and you recognize that is the divine force within you, you start to fine-tune that connection and realize that, well, yeah, I'm always being divinely guided. If I desire to experience this, one way or another will be materialized, right? Even when we're not moving or taking action, just because we are eternal beings, right? Rather, we're in the non-physical, in the physical world, we're constantly contributing and feeding information to the source, right? And it continues to expand. It is this unlimited force that which we have to recognize, identify as such, before we try to rely on what the world is expecting of us. Right?
Wow, that's powerful. What goes into measuring with the vibrational revelation? So say we're measuring the ethicalness of a political figure. How do you do that? How does that look?
So we use technology, and in most cases we use photos as witnesses of a person, whether it's a person from thousands of years ago, right, or a person that is alive today. If you think about it this way, that Biofield, which is the science of Biofield, what is Biofield? It's a record keeper of all of the information. Everything that has ever happened will happen and is happening, and it's all happening in the now. So it's sort of like is a disk or a cloud, if we can make it in layman terms. It's a cloud that records everything in space-time continuum. Okay.
It's like Akasha Records. Is that
in a way? Yes.
Okay.
In a way, yes. So we're able to use scalar wave technology, but also the two of us doing it at the same time. Okay. We're using several
instruments simultaneously.
Yes.
And it's blindfold process.
I mean, we're not literally wearing blindfold, but we're not looking at what the other person is doing. So it has
double blind, I should say.
Yes.
Yes, and it's using the technology. It has nothing to do with our intuitive abilities, right?
Okay.
We don't use intuition.
We use intuition
for other things.
I will say that when we're relaying the message, when we're sharing the vibrational frequency analysis to someone, that's when we use our intuition, I feel, because we have to feel exactly what message needs to be shared and what the person needs to hear, not what we want them to hear. Right? So we have to really be turned on,
right?
Tapped in and tuned in.
But you know, one thing about intuition, I'll share with you. Sometimes when we read or analyze using scalar wave technology, different people, we can feel them very, very strongly too. And at some stages, it's like, okay, we have to disconnect because it can be extremely profound. Sometimes it can be energetically depleting. But in those cases, yes, the information comes through not only through the instruments, but also through feeling and sometimes hearing things, because both of us are extremely intuitive. But again, we don't use intuition to retrieve the data. So, and then we analyze the data. Actually, we just came up with a term, which I think is so perfect. Alejandro did the other day. He said, we're frequency profilers. And I said, that is exactly what we are. We're like the Sherlock Holmes of frequencies.
I love that.
Yes. It's like such a perfect, I think, sexy term to
It
use.
is. I haven't heard that either. So that's yours.
Yes. Yeah.
I would say that the beginning of this journey and adventure as well.
It has been an adventure.
It started with the book Power versus Force, from Dr. Hawkins. And he's the one who actually started or created the scale.
His own scale.
His own scale from 1 up to 1,000, right?
Right.
Which we're so appreciative of that and grateful that he did that. It was amazing because we were able to expand from there and right. And we didn't know exactly what we were doing at the time. But by going through the book Power versus Force, there were a couple of things. Well, at first it blew my mind, Elena had read that book years before I got a hold of it. I got a hold of it 5 years ago. And at first it blew my mind, and I was, oh my God, I found this book. Yes, I read this a long time ago. And I said, really? Well, I think this is so cool. and maybe we can find some answers and somehow figure out who is actually high vibe,
Yeah.
And
but he uses kinesiology, which we don't.
That is
right.
Dr.
That's
Hawkins,
a big
right?
difference.
That's what he uses, kinesiology. So diving in, first it blew my mind, and then as you're going through it, there were a few things that didn't resonate, right? There were a few discrepancies, but it was all based on my feeling, right? The resonance that I felt. I didn't have any scientific facts, in order to compare that, which I found that didn't resonate. But that really triggered our curiosity. And that's when we decided, okay, let's figure out how we can actually come up with a way. We didn't even mention the word system then. A way in which we can really.
Now we're up to almost 40 categories, actually. So he tested one number for a person, and we've expanded it into 40 because we realized, first of all, no one is just one number.
Right.
And the way we perceive different aspects of our life will resonate at a totally different frequencies in many ways. And also the recognition that throughout life, this is why we measure frequencies, lifetime frequencies for people, that people go through their own hero's journey, right? You have people, for example, the first 20 to 40 years of their life stayed frequency of 50 from birth, right? And then there's shifts. And we were able to actually now detect emotions, events, and situations that contribute to persons' drops in frequencies. And also, what is the difference? We specifically wanted to know, do we all come as that one frequency, or does something happen in utero? And as perhaps most of the people listening now, you've heard of the science of epigenetics. Epigenetics begins when? In utero, right? So we wanted to define, okay, how do we incarnate at the moment of conception? When the sperm and the egg come together, the genetic information starts flowing. Within the first 48 hours, the soul decides to enter this dimension in utero. Okay, we said there's a certain frequency, but in most cases, we've recognized and identified that the frequency for most human beings drops at birth. So then we started looking into emotions that a mother would experience during pregnancy that would contribute to that frequency drop. And then going further and further now in thousands of cases, and reading now some of the literature, we have absolutely confirmed the science of epigenetics and how it impacts every single human being, how information is transferred through emotions, through our genetics. And there's actually quite a lot of data now looking into generational patterns. So this is something that we're also able to detect. What happens, there's a big study that was done on Holocaust survivors and their grandchildren. And you can see that the grandchildren, this epigenome has been passed on to them, the emotions. So the trauma is passed on to the third generation, and it completely rewires the DNA. It turns certain genes on and off. There's a whole study on which specific genes. So the third generation feels like they are experiencing the Holocaust. And same thing with American Indians. You see a huge rise in the United States. They're the population with the highest percentage of suicide in the United States. And why is that? That also has to do with the trauma. So we're able to, through the vibrational frequencies, look at that trauma and pinpoint exactly what were the emotions that your mom experienced when she was pregnant with you. In some cases, it's conscious. In other cases, like we had somebody say, oh, my mom told me she had the most amazing pregnancy. So as we start asking questions, then they'll say, oh, yeah, she did experience this. Yes, she did experience that. But it's fascinating how our mind tells us one thing, but based on what information gets passed on, we're able to decipher that and give those tools to people, so then they'll have more clarity, more peace in order to heal the generational trauma, because it is key, right? So we've been able to identify so many different aspects in order to give the opportunity for people that contact us to heal.
Yes, to gain a deeper understanding, and also when we say that a person is not just only one number, is because when we do the vibrational frequency analysis, we cover so many categories that, and we read the frequencies of the different aspects of your life, right? That is linked to the inner dialogue when it comes to health, per se. What is your inner dialogue when it comes to health? The better you feel towards that aspect, the higher you're going to vibrate, right? And that more joy you're going to feel when it comes to dealing with things related to health. And so throughout life, or even throughout the day, we are touching on different topics. And since we're all actors playing a role, often we put a different hat based on the type of subject or topic that we're talking about, right?
Right.
And that hat has a particular energetic signature that is a byproduct of your inner dialogue, which comes from the programming acquired since birth up to now, plus the information that has been transferred, as Elena pointed out, from previous generations.
This is so fascinating and powerful, because it just goes to show that regardless of your conception experience or your generational trauma, you have the opportunity, the ability to interrupt the pattern if you choose to do so, and create an entirely whole new life, not only for yourself, but for future generations to come. And so there really is no excuse. I'm not saying it's not going to be hard not to go through and show up and do the work, but there's really no excuse for where you are at currently in your state right now in life, because it ultimately comes back to you. And if you want to make a difference, if you want to make a shift, if you want to be a different person, anybody can step into this new life if they choose to do the work.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Definitely.
Okay.
I can attest to that. I had a moment to where I said, okay, enough of what I have been experiencing. There has to be a greater feeling, and that's what I'm after. What is it that I need to do? And first, I have to take full responsibility for my actions, and two, honor my inner voice, right? Because that's just, it's there guiding me to what I want to experience, and it is accessing unlimited amount of information, right? Divine intelligence,
right?
And from there is just practicing diminishing or dismantling, the labels that we have attached and identified with. But it is painful. I have to admit, it was so painful. I was for days glued to my bed. I couldn't get up, but I decided I'm not going to date. This was before I met Elena. I said, I'm not dating anyone. I'm gonna be with myself, learning about myself, respecting myself, honoring myself, and practicing what it is to experience higher levels of consciousness, right? Because that is Lao Tzu pointed that out very clearly. That by accessing higher levels of consciousness, you are experiencing with that which has no resistance whatsoever. You're being exposed to that, let's say the non-resistant field of information, and which is, the more you practice it, the more it gets imprinted in your field, and then it becomes the new norm,
Right. So take us through a quick journey and sorry, there's a fly in my face.
We have flies here too. It's weird.
Here too,
the weather's been so nice. So I've just opened the doors and now all the critters and flies are coming in. Yes. Take us through just a snapshot of what does that look like? So say somebody they want to break that generational trauma. I mean, and we see it so much nowadays. It's all over social media. Everyone's talking about it. I'm just going to put myself in this position. I come to you and say, this was my history and it was abusive. I want to reset that. I want a new life for myself. How would you take me on as a client and go down that process? Like, what does that look like for that transition?
For asking that. Sure. First of all, we don't ever ask any questions. The way we work is we just request a photograph, full body photograph of you and your name. That's all that we need.
Wow.
And then we input that into our system.
Unless we're doing the lifetime frequency analysis, then we require the birth date.
Yeah, we need just
right?
Like your age, you just provide your age, right? So then we'll go through first the analysis of all up to 40 categories at this point, right? So we look at your incarnation, your birth, where you are today as far as the vibrational frequencies. And I want to say this to people. So some people are very much into going and getting their physicals done every year. You go to the doctor, you want to see where you stand, where's my glucose level, right? How is my liver function, my cholesterol? So in a way, you can say this is a great thing that I was just shared what we are frequency. What did I say? Profilers. We are looking into what is happening with you at the moment, and not just at the moment, because it takes a while to get to where you are today. So again, where you stand, how you incarnated, you were born, all the emotions that you inherited, we would give that to you. And again, this is based on what your mom experienced. And ultimately, they become your emotions. Then looking at how do you view health, relationships, creativity, personal growth, philanthropy, intuition, all 4 different categories of intuition. We look at different levels of intelligence, your IQ, your emotional intelligence, your social quotient, your adversity quotient. And then we look at percentages, because you could be experiencing any kind of emotion, but it's more about how much do you enjoy playing the role of Chrissy in this reality? It's important. You want to know that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
How much are you in your ego? People want to know. Okay. So this is right, important to know. And then what kind of ego? Inferior, superior? Are you in full integrity with yourself? And then some people ask us because they want to know if they're in what the percentage is integrity to others.
Okay.
That's important, right?
Absolutely.
Self-awareness, clarity, alignment with divine purpose, which for most people, it's their most important number. And it's regardless of what frequency you're experiencing. But are you here listening to your divine guidance? And you're aligning with your divine mission. So this is, again, we would not tell you what your divine mission is. But let's say if you are 90% or higher alignment with divine purpose, it would tell you that you have stepped onto your divine path of walking what it is you're meant to do. And a lot of times with younger generations, it takes a while to find that. And a lot of it also has to do with honoring yourself, that integrity to you, right? Learning to listen to your inner guidance. And then
because the more you listen to your inner guidance, or in order to listen to inner guidance, you have to release what the world is expecting of you, right? You have to detach from the labels you have identified yourself with, and also pretty much you experience freedom. And I would say that the most important freedom is inner freedom, right? Because you're not relying on what's happening outside of yourself. So you feel freer when you pay attention to what resonates with you, and that impacts your level of joy. So if you feel freer, you're going to have a lot more joy playing the role that you're playing in this lifetime, right? So that and by doing that, by detaching from the programming, means that you're paying attention to your inner voice. And when that happens, you're also not paying too much attention to the known territory, which is linked to the ego. You're allowing the divine intelligence to flow. You're being open for life to surprise you, right? Which is the unknown that is linked to divine intelligence. Right?
And then we look at personal alignment with personal purpose, which is very much aligned to your persona self, which is linked to the ego, and it is linked to the label. So most of the time people say, oh, I'm aligned with my purpose. But a lot of times it could be just your persona, your personal purpose. And there's nothing wrong with that. You want both of them to be aligned, the divine and personal. We look at compassion, empathy, energy purity, which has to do with how much do you embody the frequency that you vibrate at the moment. We look into dimensions. Again, it's not about escaping to some other alternative reality. It's more about the frequencies, and dimensions are linked to the frequencies. So how much, let's say, you vibrate, oftentimes you hear people say, I'm in 5D. Well, what is 5D? Well, we identified 5D as a frequency of 525. So that's a high frequency, right? So how much time do you spend, or do you experience that frequency? We can also identify that, or any other dimensions as well. And one thing about, I want to go back to the divine purpose. It could be scary, right? Because and I think for most people who are aligned with who they are, it is about taking that jump into the unknown. Like for me and for Alejandro, we had to also change our path, what everyone was expecting of us to do, to really allowing for the divine internal intelligence to guide us to what we're doing today. And we're having a blast doing it, by the way. In the beginning, when we first discovered the system, I think we were just hours, 10 hours a day, probably reading nonstop. Oh, I want to know this. I want to know that. It was like, kids in the candy store. And it happened actually with our kids too. Like we've had, like one of my kids give me a list. He's like, Mom, can we just check these 3 people? I just know. And I'm like, 3. Okay, let's check 3. And then it's like 60 people. I'm like, and
oh my God. Leave.
It's like, oh my God, this is so good. So it's more also about teaching you to trust your intuition.
That is the key, I would say, definitely.
But lifetime, so going back to the question, what we reveal. So for you, if you were to book that, those are the things. Plus, if you want to look at your lifetime, again, let's say you're 40 years old. I don't know how old you are, but let's just say 40. So we'll look at your lifetime from birth until 40 years old, and you will give you information in frequencies throughout your entire life. And we will also give you, when we see drops, what emotions you've experienced, what events and situations contributed to that frequency drop. And all of it is meant to help you,
Right.
first of all, appreciate your own journey, because when you have compassion for yourself, you're less likely to judge other people. And we always say that every journey is important. This is why we can never compare our frequencies to anyone else, because what you signed up for is your own hero's journey.
Yes, and everyone's journey is uniquely and divinely orchestrated, and we always emphasize that one must focus on the hero's journey and realize how much they were able to overcome, and realize that they hold the torch.
Right.
No, it might look like their neighbor's torch, but it's not. It has been uniquely created for them. And that torch is always within reach, that they can use and cross and go through any tunnel at any time.
And we'll say, somebody, let's say the frequency of 200 out of scale 0 to 1,000 is just as beautiful as somebody at a frequency of 700 or 1,000. And this is one of the most important messages that we have for people in our community, Vibrational Revelations community. It also has expanded our view of this reality with Alejandro. We've become much more humbled, deeply touched by every story and every journey of what human beings go through. So therefore, we can never say, oh, this is better and this is worse.
Right.
And you realize, because we're all connected, and we're all connected to the same source. We're all contributing information, again, feeding it to the source, and the source is feeding it back to us, right? The one that vibrates at 50 is contributing to information that others that vibrate at the same frequency are seeking and looking for, right? Wanting to experience. So that makes it beautiful, because you realize that everyone has the same DNA. In a way, we just activate different sections of that information based on what we are here to experience.
So then how does, when a soul incarnates, we choose our soul's journey, or we choose, this path? Some people have it very easy. Others have it very difficult. Why would a soul choose a difficult path? Like, why would you not just want to come in here and experience joy and bliss and ease and all? I mean, why would a soul want to choose hardship and pain and suffering?
Sure. I have one thing I want to say. Imagine you walk into a room and everything is white. But on a deep level, there's red, yellow, orange, green. There's a whole rainbow there as well. So if you only experience one color, you will never understand that there is beauty that is part of that too. And who is to say that hardship is not beautiful? And that what we're asking for example, if we're asking for courage, God give me courage, you're going to be faced to experience things that will give you courage. If you want to be more compassionate, you'll be faced with things that will bring you more compassion in your life. So I would say, be careful what you ask for, because that will come to us as examples and lessons in life.
What a beautiful way of explaining that. And that makes sense now to me. I can tell that the contrast of my life personally has given me the ability to be more empathetic, to be more non-judgmental of people. And this is just a journey we're all on together.
I just thought about how I'm sure everyone has a story, right? And we could sit and look where we are today. I can tell you, for me, we've touched upon it, being bullied as a child, being a refugee, coming to a country when you don't speak the language you also have had to overcome so much adversity, and you recognize how important it is to have compassion. And without going through those adversities and challenges, it's very difficult to be able to relate to humanity and what each human being is going through. So when we see hate in the world right now, there's so much of that happening. All I want to do is just raise the love and talk to people about just opening their eyes and recognizing that we're being divided. And it's really about not allowing anyone to divide it, but for us to recognize that our diversity is what makes us beautiful, for all of us to come together. And it is that diversity also of frequencies that contributes and is so powerful.
It's mind-blowing when you really think about it. I loved your conversation with Dr. Bruce Lipton that you had a while back. And if those of you that don't know, he's a cellular biologist, right? And he bridges basically science and spirit. Is that pretty much the best way of explaining him?
He's also one of the pioneers in the field of epigenetics.
Right. Okay.
So he was a professor at medical school many, many, many years ago. And now he's teaching the science of epigenetics.
I remember him pointing out, or you may have brought this up, that there's such a mass disconnect right now between Earth and humanity. And so what is something that we can do to help shift the current frequency with so much corruption taking place right now?
So from a frequency perspective, we'll just share this here. The frequency of planet Earth on a scale of 0 to 1,000 is 700. So it means that Earth is sentient and it's an illuminated being. Okay. Humanity since 2020 has drastically dropped frequency. So as of this year, which we will be releasing next year's frequency, as of this year, the collective consciousness of humanity is 125. So you can imagine the Earth is at 700, humanity is at 125. What does it mean? That Earth is an evolved being compared to humans, that we are in the infancy stage. And this 125 frequency from 0 to 199 is the frequency of victimization. So what does it mean? We see ourselves as separate from the whole. We see that it's somebody else outside of us that is responsible for what is happening in our everyday life. So in order for humanity to wake up and to be fully conscious and aware, we have to take full responsibility for our decisions, the decisions that we make, how we communicate to other people. Do we live in full integrity with who we are and the environment around us and the people around us? Or do we tend to blame others for everything that happens in our life? So we're being called as humans at the moment to wake up courageously and take full responsibility for our actions, our thoughts, and our interactions with everything around us.
So pretty much before we try to carry the world on our shoulders, we have to take time to go inward,
right?
Do the best to master ourselves, right? To master our emotions and to pay attention to our inner voice and to recognize that we are God's energy having a human experience.
What spiritual modalities do you enjoy using with that every day?
I think being alive is already spiritual. Every human being is spiritual.
Definitely, everyone is spiritual. Everyone is divine, and whatever we admit is divine.
Yeah.
But I would say this, for some of us, I realized this, especially through the frequencies and revelations and reading thousands of people. For some of us, it comes naturally to see beauty in the world.
Yes.
For me, it's a natural process. For others, it's a challenge. So I would say it's my invitation to those that are having difficulties finding the beauty is to make that a priority. Perhaps a couple of minutes a day, allow yourself to go on a walk and pinpoint what is beautiful that you see around you. Because guess what? As Bruce Lipton said, that earth is heaven. We're living on heaven and earth. And without connecting to that beauty that exists around us, it's going to be very difficult to shift. So I would say spiritual practice is recognizing the beauty that exists inside of yourself and around you.
Yes, and we also interviewed Jacob Lieberman.
Oh, yes.
A beautiful human being. And he shared that when we asked him, how often do you meditate? Right? He said, well, really, life is a meditation.
Yes.
I don't really sit down and meditate. I'm meditating throughout the day at different times, even when I'm washing the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
And that being fully engaged in what you're doing without getting caught up in the chaos, right? Or being distracted by the outer world, that helps you to remain in the present moment. And that also helps you to feel your divine essence, and the more you feel it, the easier it is to access it and to know that it is there backing you up. It is your support system.
So washing
support
dishes
team.
is a spiritual process. There you go.
Exactly.
I can attest to that. Yes. I'm the same way when whether I'm driving or I'm taking a walk in nature or just cleaning around the house, I feel like I'm in constant meditation. Like I always used to say I'm in the 5D all the time because I just feel joy and bliss and abundance because I just know that life is such a beautiful gift. It's an incredible gift and it's what you make of it. And so while, all this is going on in our world, it's not that I'm oblivious to it. I just choose not to engage in it. I choose not to let it infiltrate my experience on a daily basis because I know I'm here right now. I may not have this physical human experience tomorrow. So I'm grateful for it and all of its hurt. And, but I choose not to suffer. Like, I think I'm always meditating, but it's
exactly.
I know people experience a lot of pain in life and I don't want to discount that. Is it something that somebody can really learn, do you think, to look at life in that lens?
It takes practice.
Because it's conditioning. Right.
So anything can be conditioned is what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, that's true.
Right. And it's all about the feeling. The better you feel, the higher you vibrate. And the more often you practice that, then eventually that becomes your predominant emotion. That becomes the level of consciousness in which you live and experience life, and making feeling good a priority. That doesn't mean to avoid or neglect the reality. If you're feeling pain and discomfort and you're experiencing resistance, just acknowledge it, but keep that always active in your field. That will help you navigate through it. And it's kind of like I always think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. That gives you hope and even more than hope.
I keep thinking there's so many situations that happen in life, and should I say they were not beautiful. Looking back, we were refugees when we left Soviet Union. I left with my mom, my dad, my sister, and my grandmother. We each had $150 a person, 2 suitcases, and that was it. And we had to go through first Austria and then Italy. Thank God it was summer. My mom and dad found a mattress from the garbage somewhere, and they slept on the rooftop, the Scalar in Italy. And my grandmother, my sister, and I slept in a tiny, tiny, tiny little room. We ate canned food, had extreme poverty. But I can tell you this, we had to share a house with many, many refugees, and there were people screaming and arguing at each other. And then it was my parents, and we had tremendous amount of love. And that's the biggest gift, I would say, is if you have one person in your life that is that support system and love, that is the greatest gift that will get you through any kind of adversity. And recognizing that in the midst of chaos, there is still beauty there. And I will share another thing. There's one movie that I love, and one is the book. One is called, very famous Italian film. It won an Oscar, Life is Beautiful. I don't know if you've seen it, Christy.
Oh, yeah, a long time ago.
Yes, right, about Holocaust. Both of those, it's interesting, both of those have to do with Holocaust and how a father created this fairy tale story for his little son. I don't know if he was 4 or 5 years old, that it was a game. He created a game so his son didn't have to experience the horror of what happened. And that is really the way that we can perceive life. You can see it for what it is, but it's the meaning that you bring into it, which brings me to the book that I love. It's one of my favorite books, and I recommend it to every person. And that is Man's search for meaning.
Yeah.
Yes. And I would say every page in that book, I've probably underlined and highlighted over and over. And again, it goes back to, what is it that makes people survive the harshest, the most difficult, challenging situations in life? And ultimately, how is it that some people see beauty in all of it? And, for me, I can reflect back on what I went through and the adversity I have gone through. And I can say that it's the love that has shaped me into seeing the beauty in the midst of horror and difficulties and adversities. And yes, as a collective, we're going through so many difficult things right now: wars and unemployment and death, losing our loved ones, as you and I both have lost our loved ones recently. Gosh, I still can cry over it. It's a grief, something that never goes away, right? I said this morning, I said, grief never goes away. Losing your loved one, even though we know they don't really leave from an energetic point of view, you still want that physical experience.
Yeah.
So it's understanding that life is truly beautiful. And the emotions that we experience, the highs and the lows, is what contributes to the colorful experience of what it means to be a human being.
Right. Oh, that was so beautiful. It is. It really is. It's the contrast of all of it that, I don't know. I feel blessed every moment, every day. If I wake up and I just thank you so much for allowing me to have another shot at life, another chance to dance and sing and be silly and not take life so seriously, and just to be kind to people. I find that I just don't know. I don't understand how people can just be so, and I understand because of their own personal stuff they're going through, but even through the worst time of my life, I still wasn't rude to people. I still wasn't mean to people. And I just think that way, that kindness is free. It's so easy just to be kind to somebody. And I think that's another wonderful way of looking at it, just to show up every day and just be kind, do one act of kindness. It's going to just add so much to consciousness and in the joy and love and elevating that vibration. So, yeah.
And that's beauty, Christy. Thank you for saying that. For me, number one description I had on my list of what my ideal partner is kindness.
Yes.
I wrote down huge heart because I think it's beautiful.
It really is. And it transcends any life challenge that you may face when someone's kind and love, as well, as you mentioned. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I could sit and talk to you forever, for all day long. You two are such a beautiful couple. In closing, the Vibrational Revelations community, I just joined this morning. I'm so thrilled to just dive right in. And is it every Tuesday?
So it was always
every Tuesday, right?
Okay.
So now we offer at least two live episodes, and in between we also share surprises,
Oh, okay.
based on what is happening and
yes,
in the now.
And then we also do once a month a guided heart opening episode, to where we come together as a community. And if there are any kind of places in the world that need our focus, then as a community, we will meditate, we will send light to that region. Also in our membership community, those that need our help, we've had people that had surgeries, so we come together and support that person as well.
Beautiful.
There's beautiful messages that we also have. It's not just about reading frequencies, which most people love, and we love it too, but there's so much more. And it's about remembering how to be more compassionate. And this is really our message to the world through the work that we do, is really coming together to a place of non-judgment, love, compassion, and you'll see it. And exploration, because we're all about what else is there? What can we explore? And we interact with our members to where they also give us suggestions. And through those suggestions, we're able to go further and bigger and open new doors to new possibilities.
I love it. So what's the mission? If you could, your big mission with Vibrational Revelations, where would you like to see it go and grow over the next couple of years?
Oh gosh. The mission, first of all, is to help raise the consciousness of humanity through kindness, compassion, non-judgment. We wish for the whole world to understand the work that we do and really begin to reach out to one another across the world from different cultures, different religions, and just embrace one another.
To remember that which they were, are, and will always be, and that we're all connected, and that we're all one.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for being here
Thank
today.
you,
I sincerely appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Oh, you two are lovely. So lovely. Thank you so much.
And
And
let it
honor.
flow.
Let
Let
it
it flow.
What is your zodiac sign, Chrissy?
Oh, so I'm a Taurus. I
What's
love.
a Pisces somewhere in your chart? Do you know your whole chart or no?
I do. I'm a Taurus sun, Taurus moon, Sagittarius rising. Aries is in my, what's the love sign? The Mercury,
Venus.
Venus. Aries.
We also
Oh,
have
you
Venus
are?
in Aries.
Okay, Aries
That's why
is my-
we're like, oh, I like it.
Aries is my Venus. I think I do a Pisces somewhere, and I think I have Scorpio somewhere. But I'm heavy Earth and a little fire in my rising, which makes a lot of sense when I think about it.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Have a beautiful day.